Sion versus Ambessa. One of the most common matchups these Worlds and also one of the most common matchups this year as a whole. So here I have a game from two decently good top laners, okay? They're above average. Doran versus Kiin. And so we'll be looking at how the best players in the world play this matchup and what mistakes they make in matchups as such. Right, and here we already see both Kiin and Doran pulling the waves. This is already a lot different than all of the previous reviews that I've done. Players are actually manipulating the wave, not by just attacking it, but also by pulling it, which is quite nice to see. The reason why they're doing that, I hope it's obvious. Kiin wants pulling the wave down because he wants the wave to be further away from these bushes right here, and then Doran wants the opposite, so he's pulling the wave up. The reason why Doran wants the wave to be closer to these top bushes is because by doing so, he can play then through them. He can play through this bush and then this bush. And that's because normally what Sion does is he waits for Ambessa's last hits, and then he's abusing his range advantage. I believe he has about 50 units of range advantage, which is quite massive. And so Doran can maybe avoid some of those exchanges by having the wave closer to these bushes. So this is all really good. In the end, as you can see, the wave ended up being closer to the river, so you could argue that Kiin has won this exchange, but in reality, this doesn't have that meaningful of an impact over the laning phase. But it's still a minor detail that is nice to see, that the best players in the world are doing. The wave ended up being closer to the bot side of the lane. Normally it meets somewhere near here, where actually Sion is standing, is where normally the wave would meet, but these wave pools obviously did their job. And now we get into another stage of the laning phase, which is trading level 1, okay? There's two types of trades that Ambessa will have to look out for. The first type of exchange that Ambessa is going to have to look out for is Kiin looking to sneak in his auto attacks. Kiin has a massive auto attack range advantage. His auto attacks also deal a lot more damage relative to Ambessa's auto attacks. So whenever he is given an opportunity to sneak in an auto attack, he should be just doing it. So like even arguably on this minion, Kiin should be already standing on top of it and be ready to auto attack Ambessa, but that's like a minor little detail. It doesn't really matter. As you can see, his positioning is really good all around. This is something that I don't think people recognize, but if you once again watch any of the previous VODs I was reviewing, one of the most common things I was focusing on is players mispositioning, playing too passively. If I'm watching a European top laner, he's here. You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to stand here and make it so that either this Ambessa is trading auto attacks onto you or she is not accessing this wave. It's so important, but players just do not understand it that well. And then we have Kiin clicking all the way forward and looking to force an exchange. So let's talk about exchanges of Sion surrounding his W. There's two ways you can trade a Sion. There is one, the more common way, which is what Kiin is going to do, and there's an alternative. Let's start with the alternative. This is a lot more common for whatever reason among Sion one-tricks, at least on the Korean server. I don't know about you, but on the Korean server, what a lot of Sion players like to do is they like to eat Ambessa's damage from her Q, and then on her Q cooldowns where they will press their W, and trade with her in front of the wave. The idea of this is that you're able to recast your W consistently when Ambessa's Q is on cooldown. Pretty obvious. And in this exchange pattern, you might end up taking more damage, but you also end up dealing more damage to Ambessa. I am personally more a fan of this alternative approach, but now we have to go back to what is actually happening and what pro players are actually doing in this laning phase. And by pro players, I mean like top of the top players at Worlds, okay? What best players are doing is they're casting their W to block Ambessa's skill rotation. And the idea is that you're a lot more consistent when you're doing this. You can repeat it every game, and you also end up in the same situation over and over again because you're going to trade your abilities evenly and there is no like RNG factor related to it. You will have similar windows every single game. And so that's what Kiin is going to do here. He's going to step up, he's going to cast his W on Ambessa's ability, and he's not going to be able to recast his W, but either way, he was able to take a net positive exchange. And the exchange wasn't like hardcore super positive. Ambessa, you need to recognize that here Ambessa is already kind of low HP, and that's because she was trading with, I think, Kiin actually, before the laning phase even started. I didn't want to discuss it much because it's just Doran face checking jungle, doesn't really matter. But the exchange wasn't like that hard winning, okay? It might seem like it was because of her HP being already low, but it wasn't. And it could have been even more winning for Doran if he played it better. So the main thing that Doran should have done better here is auto attack first and then Q. Why is that important? It's because on Ambessa, when you auto attack first and then you Q, you make it so that your ability to land your Q outer damage, because when Ambessa throws her Q like that, only the outer edge of her Q, this bonus damage, and then everything else is a lot lower damage. And as much as Doran was able to land his outer damage Q in this case, you're not able to do it consistently. I haven't seen a player so far, nobody is able to land their outer Q damage consistently because it has a lot to do with both your mechanics and then your opponent's movement. So for that reason, I like an auto attack first, but there's a second reason. By going for an auto attack first and then queuing, you will extend the exchange because instead of throwing your Q, auto attack and then Q2 auto attack, you sneak in an auto attack first and then you Q and then you auto attack. So the exchange is extended by a little bit, which benefits you in this case because you're fighting inside of your wave. So if you have a way of extending this exchange a little bit more without losing too much HP in return, which you want in this case because all of your auto attacks are going to use after each ability are going to be your passive auto attacks, which are the strong auto attack. They're actually capable of matching somewhat Sion's auto attack damage, which is very, very high at level 1. And yeah, I would love to see Doran starting the exchange with auto attack here instead of queuing. And another thing I would love to see him do is not dash away on this Q2. He should be staying in place, no dash at all, and just auto-attack him one more time with your passive. But he panicked, whatever, and he ended up taking a somewhat negative exchange. And now, an important part about trading your W for Ambessa's Q evenly as Sion. The important part is that you will consistently end up in the same windows when it comes to trade patterns. What I mean by that is by the time that Sion's W is at about, I want to say 3 to 4 seconds of his cooldown, Ambessa's Q will be already up by that point. So this 3 to 4 second window on your W is where you have to be careful, because during this window, Ambessa can trade onto you with her Q without you being able to block any of her damage, which, as you will see, Kiin will make this mistake in a second where he doesn't recognize this window. Also, I want to look at one more thing here. So here, Kiin goes for the minion. Now Doran chooses to auto-attack this minion once, and he will auto-attack it twice. And depending on your understanding of the game and the wave management, you will think that this is either like a huge mistake or he's playing appropriately. So let me tell you the way that pro players see this, okay? Every single better pro player goes for a third wave crash in this matchup. I don't like it so much. I think it's a bait. Don't get me wrong, there are matchups where you have to go for a third wave crash, and it's going to be the best option. But you need to also recognize that there's a lot of problems associated with third wave crashing. One of them is that you have to spend a lot more times last hitting minions. And why is that? Because when you're stacking up 3 waves, then by the third wave, the 2 stacked up waves that you have will be hard hitting the opposing third wave. And so you have to spend more of your resources, including abilities sometimes, to kill that third wave. And then another thing that comes with it is that you're not able to trade as much on the third wave. So what are some advantages of third wave crashing? First of all, you hit your level 3 consistently if you go for a third wave crash instead of second crash. This is important in matchups like into Rumble. So let's say you play Ambessa into Rumble. If as Ambessa you crash second wave, then the problem is that Rumble will contest level 3 advantage on the third wave, and as he hits level 3, he's just gonna all in you, and you're going to hard lose the laning phase if you do that. So you cannot crash a second wave into Rumble because of the level 3 advantage. Another advantage of going for a third wave crash is that you're consistently going to end up with the fourth wave meeting in middle of the lane, which can be both good and bad, depending on the laning phase that you play. For instance, when you play Jace into Sion, having the fourth wave meet in the middle of the lane is very important, because then, assuming that you have played well on the previous waves, you might be looking for some all-in angles on this fourth wave, thanks to that. Whereas if you try and go for a second wave crash into crashing the third, sometimes a better Sion player will tank some of his HP and hold the wave in front of the turret and not allow you to crash it. This can also happen in a matchup like Renekton versus Ambessa, where the Ambessa player can be annoying and not allow you to crash the third wave if you crash the second first. Okay, so there are reasons, don't get me wrong, there are good reasons to not go for a second wave crash and instead go for a third wave crash. In this laning phase, I would say it doesn't work like that. In this laning phase, you benefit from crashing waves. You are one of the few champions as Sion that can actually poke your opponent under turret with your Q on Ambessa's last hits. You just charge your Q on her last hit, and she's either dropping it, using an ability to dodge it. She has to waste some resources basically, and she's likely going to lose minions from it. So by going for a second wave crash into third, you have 2 different separate timers on which you can trade with your opponent, and those timers are consistent, okay? You can do it every game. You never lose level 3 advantage into Ambessa, it's impossible. Your champion has infinitely more push, and then also, she can never hold the wave and keep it away from crashing without losing majority of her HP, because once again, you're a champion that can trade and is not truly a melee champion, because you have a lot of range on your auto attacks first of all, and then second thing, your Q, your W, and your E are all range abilities, basically, so you don't have to ever worry about that, which is why I do not love what Kiin will do in this game, which is going to be, I believe, a second wave half crash. But in reality, majority of times what he will do is just third wave early crash. But a half crash on the second is basically like a third wave crash to him, and they will look almost the same. It will have one slight difference that is very relevant actually, and I will talk about it later, but I just want to prepare you for this, okay? I am not gonna love his wave management, but I will assume that he wants to play like that, and I'm gonna explain what he should be doing given that he's going for a second wave half crash, which is basically the same as a third wave crash, with one small difference once again. So now that I've explained all of it, let's look at how they both play around this wave. So Doran was hitting this minion. He hit it once, and then he should be hitting it another time here because he has a timer on which he can do it, and he will last hit it, but instead he waits. And this waiting is just him panicking. He should have auto-attacked it one more time. During this, Kiin wouldn't be able to close distance in time and poke with his auto-attack. But after making that small mistake, he then fixes his error, and here instead of focusing on the minion last hit, he is just trading auto attacks evenly with Kiin, and then he gets the last hit, which is really good by him. You could also argue here, by the way, that Kiin should be overextending this exchange. So after this auto attack usage, he should extend this. So he shouldn't drop it right away, like click all the way back, but he should continue to play around here. And that's because he would eventually drop aggro from these ranges. They would de-aggro from him, because that's just the way that minions function. They will de-aggro to this range minion. No, this melee minion at some point, because he is in their way, if that makes sense. I don't want to get full on into minion aggroing, but he would eventually drop it by dancing back and forth. And he would have been able, therefore, to consistently deny this minion. Whereas now, because he clicks all the way back, he's not able to deny this minion, which is not ideal. Then Kiin goes for this last hit, and now we are getting to the timer that I've talked about previously, where Ambessa's Q is coming back up, and Sion's W is not back quite yet. So for the next 5 seconds or so, Kiin needs to be aware that Ambessa can trade with her Q without him being able to block any of the damage with his W. So, like even here, Ambessa can trade with her Q. And Kiin is trolling, okay? Kiin is trolling, but Doran is trolling as well. Doran should be clicking in and trading with his Q, because this guy has no W still. On the other hand, Kiin is inting because he is just gonna get out-traded here. And it's not like they're playing mind games or anything, by the way. There's not much more to it. They're just trolling individually. They don't understand exactly what they're supposed to do. And then Doran panics and uses his Q for no reason. What he should be doing is playing on this minion and then either going for an auto attack exchange and then queuing Sion, or if Sion clicks back as you click forward, which is what he should be doing. I don't think Kiin would have done it in this case. It looks very much based off the movement like Kiin thinks that he can trade on this minion, which he can't. But if he were to click back, then you're happy and you just take the minion and you're good. But instead he panics and he queues the minion, which is not ideal. And then he goes for the exchange with Q, auto attack, and then Q2, and then the dash on the Q2 is backwards. And as much as the previous dash backwards from this position on the first trade was bad, this dash is better. And that's because Sion's W is coming back up. So if you were to, let's say, overstay in this position and auto attack him one more time, then there is some likelihood that Kiin would have casted his W on this and traded onto you. So here, as you can see, Kiin ended up not being able to cast his W either way. Like here, it's coming back up within a second. And Doran was able to sneak in his skill rotation before it actually came back, so Kiin made a mistake. But now there is another problem that I didn't know existed at the time. Kiin is unwilling to crash the second wave. Because he has W up, he can use it right now, it's gonna be a good timer. He could use it, click forward, and then proc the recast onto Ambessa, simply enough. But as you will see, he's not doing it. And that's because he wants to go for the third wave crash. He's really, really trying to play around it. So here as he hits level 2 advantage, he cannot really abuse it. He would want to, and he's kind of looking for it, but he can't do much about it. During this, Ambessa is just chilling. She's supposed to be chilling. And even though she's chilling, and even though Kiin cannot do anything, Kiin is continuing to pressure. This is so nice to see. This is very, very nice to see. He has nothing to do. He could be standing here. And it wouldn't matter, but he's continuing to pressure. There is this constant tension that you would feel if you played Ambessa, that this Sion can go onto you, even though in reality, this Q would be useless, because this guy would just Q sideways. But even then, Kiin is constantly applying this pressure. This is so important that you do, as a top laner. So important. Here you can see the disadvantage of a third wave crash, where he has to last hit this minion, this minion, this minion, like 4 minions at a time, because he's going for a third wave crash. During that, Doran casted his Q onto a minion. This was intentional, and the idea is that he's just gonna use it to last hit this back range minion. And now we have the second wave half crash. The way you know this is a half crash, even if Doran were not to pull the wave, which I think he's going to do, is because the wave in this position, if it's killed between 221 up to, I want to say 223-ish, although it really depends, then it's typically going to half crash. A half crash is when melee minions die, or if you have a cannon wave, then melee minions on a cannon, but the ranges stay alive. So if the turret range looks like this, not like this, it's more like that. Then these melees are gonna die, these ranges are staying outside of the turret. And there's one unique thing about half crashes, okay, that I wanna talk about. And the unique thing is that enemy range minions are inside of the turret range. What it means for you now on this third wave as Sion is that as you crash this third wave, which you're always going to, there is no way for you to not do it because of the range minion advantage that you have here. And so as you crash the third wave, your melee minions will suicide onto these ranges. and these ranges will continuously hit your melee minions and your range minions. So all of your minions effectively, or not all of them, but a huge portion of them, have an even HP. This is especially useful into champions that do not have AoE abilities. So like into Rumble, for instance, you could argue that half crushing is not good, because Rumble doesn't really care. He's going to Q and AoE one-shot everything either way. Into champion like Ambessa, it can be somewhat good. She has some AoE abilities, but huge portion of them are not AoE, or she's not able to benefit so much from minions being uneven HP. So in this case, this half crush is actually good. I don't hate it so much. I still think the second crush into the third crush would be better, but this is not terrible. Now, one important part about this half crushing is that you don't want to damage these ranges, okay? That's the last thing you want to damage. And to be fair, you don't want to damage the entire wave as a whole. You want this wave to survive as long as possible, because no matter what you do, you could literally press B right now as Sion. This third wave is gonna crash, and the fourth wave is gonna meet in neutral, okay? That's just the thing about half crashing the second wave. So you wanna damage this wave as little as possible, so that this wave is damaging your wave as much as possible, and in turn, on the crash, Ambessa will potentially lose more minions than she would have otherwise. And then Ambessa wants the opposite. So Ambessa, for instance, by positioning inside of her wave, which is more or less what Doran was doing here, is making it so that her wave is being hit, and in turn, it will damage Sion's wave a little bit less, which in theory should mean that she will have an easier time last hitting under turret. And as much as Doran is still inting, and arguably, by stepping up on this timer, because I believe his Q is coming back up within a couple of seconds, so all he had to do is just wait a little bit and not be horny. Either way, this is good positioning, you know, that he's making him Q through the wave. So I still don't hate it so much. And Kiin, on the other hand, I would say this is not ideal by Kiin. To throw his Q like that. I guess I also want to bring up one more thing that I saw here when I was watching. I forgot to mention this. When you crash the wave, you can do multiple things with this wave. So first of all, you need to recognize here on Ambessa's side, but it applies to any champion, you will take aggro from these melees. Depending on how you take aggro and how you pull them, you will have different chances of getting those last hits. So in this case, for instance, Doran is trolling. He has this minion with uneven HP, this minion is within last hit range, and the third wave, which is this one that is coming, is gonna be here within the next couple of seconds. What Doran should do is last hit, which is good, but then pull this wave up, or pull it down. I don't care which one you choose. Once again, given that the turret range is more or less like this, you can maybe pull it here, if you want to. You can run down like that, and in turn make it so that this melee minion is outside of the turret range. Or you could run like that, and make it so that this melee minion is running all the way here. And once again, you're not gonna lose it, thanks to that. But he doesn't do it, instead he throws his W and auto attack and misses it, which I don't love so much. And the reason why I thought I would bring it up is because there's a lot of concepts regarding it, and including even for Sion's side, so this is actually what I want to talk about as well. Let's say that instead of having this much HP on this melee minion, let's say this one is full HP. What should you do as a Sion? What you should do is first of all be in front of this minion right away, and second of all pull it. So you want to be right in front of it on its path, and as it runs into you and it deviates one way or the other, you follow it. By doing so, you make it so that now this melee minion is gonna be the one that goes in first under turret, and in turn Ambessa will lose an extra minion. There's a lot of different tricks that you can do with wave crashing. And these are things that happen every single game that you play as a laner. So it's important to recognize this. Once again, I don't love this Q usage. I would love him to, I think, position here if he wants to throw his Q, because then at least he's gonna throw it through a couple of minions instead of the entire wave. But it's whatever. Then we have this random auto attack onto the melee minion. It's not good either. He's not doing anything by auto attacking it, and then he's mispositioning. So you don't want to give Ambessa the ability to hit her Q through both you and the last hit. There is no reason to do that. And Ambessa is trolling here. Ambessa should be dashing forward once again. This is like one mistake that Doran makes over and over again. It's a very common mistake. It's not only that he is doing it. Everyone is doing it with Ambessa to some extent, including the one tricks. But this is something that you have to also work on. Like, you have to know that you have to that you dash forward here with your Q. And you play with your Q2 and auto attacks. Even here, arguably, you can dash sideways and then trade auto attacks. Here Kiin looked for an auto attack onto Ambessa, but Ambessa was focused on the minion, it seems like. The W usage from Kiin is beyond bad. Once again, he's going to use it inside of the entire wave, even though you want these minions to continue to hit your minions. So this W usage by Kiin is just terrible. The reason he did it is, I think, because he thought that Doran was going to auto-attack him, and he didn't want to take the damage. But even then, this W usage is not great. You want this minion, you want this wave to stay as healthy as possible, and instead what he's doing is he's one-shotting those ranges. And even here, as you can see, they barely denied one minion. Maybe if he didn't use his Q, at the start and then followed up with W recast, maybe then Ambessa would have lost an extra 2 minions. You don't know. But that's what you should be maximizing for. Because if you do cost-benefit analysis on this Q and W usage, it's negative. You denied maybe this much extra damage with your Q charge. That was inconsistent, and you could have optimized it by doing it from here instead of from the middle of the lane. And then your W usage didn't do anything at all. It was beyond useless. So Kiin didn't play well, I would argue, around this. And another problem that I have here is that he's running instantly to place vision, instead of using his Q first on those last hits and then running for vision. The reason why I really want this Q to be used on those last hits is because, first of all, it's a somewhat consistent way of poking your opponent under turret. It's very, very common for Sion players to do, and you basically have no risk while doing so. And then another thing that you need to be aware of when it comes to Sion poking is that Sion is a champion, as a type of champion, that relies on his cooldown for poke. So there are champions like Jace that can continuously poke you from this position as you go for last hits. There are champions like Gnar that do similar things. And there are champions like Sion who are walking up, throwing their Q, and then the Q is on a 10-second cooldown, and he has to run back. So you could just walk up, throw your Q, and then run and place vision, instead of not doing it at all. And to be fair, he's going for a deep ward in this case, so he might not be able to throw this ward in time and then get back to lane. But even now, he's already late. Ambessa is already capable of fighting with him outside of the lane. So it's not like she would be more capable of fighting with him outside of the lane if he poked her first and then moved. So I don't really buy that argument. I think he should have just went under the top turret on the third wave crash and went for a poke, instead of running to the cracks straight. We have the fourth wave. On the fourth wave, you can do a couple of things as both Sion and Ambessa. It all really depends on your junglers, what they want to do, and it also depends on how the previous interactions within the laning phase went. So here, I would argue that Ambessa is winning the laning phase, because she wasn't denied that many minions, and then also, she is at about the same HP level as Sion. So if I am Ambessa now, I think to myself, I am playing for an advantage. And if I am Sion, I think to myself, I fucked up, I need to play a little bit more passively. So that, in isolation, would be your decision. To give up priority as Sion on this fourth wave, try to play more passively, and then keep Ambessa's waves away from crashing. So constantly reduce the wave, make sure she doesn't have like a 5 minion advantage, but instead only 2 minions worth of advantage, and then tank some damage, let's say in this position or closer to the turret, in order to keep the wave away from crashing. What this also means for Ambessa though, is that she wants to be trading. There is no better trade that you can take than this. This is like the easiest, most winning trade you can get. And I was surprised that Doran didn't go for it the first time I was watching this VOD. I have no idea why he did not opt for it. Like, you can walk up, auto attack, E, Q, W. Like, you can throw out your whole skill rotation. Maybe not whole. You shouldn't throw out your whole skill rotation, because in theory, if Sion is a good player, he shouldn't waste all of his abilities on your skill rotation. What he should do instead is he should wait for you to use your abilities first and then turn with his E and Q. That's how better Sion players would play this out. But you can definitely walk up and auto attack E and Q backwards or something like that. Or use your EQ auto attack and then Q2 backwards. You can do that and you're probably fine. But for whatever reason, Doran didn't go for it. I'm not sure why. Instead, he goes for the exchange now. But the exchange is shit. The reason why it's shit is because this trade is not good against this type of champion. So what Doran did here is what I would call a fast trade. The idea of a fast trade is that your opponent doesn't have enough of time to react to your exchange on Ambessa. So when he goes for EQ rotation, this can be good against champions like Jax, for instance, because Jax needs his time. Jax needs to auto attack W, he needs to Q in, he needs to cast his E, he needs to recast it. Like, he needs so much time to throw out his skill rotation. So by going for EQ only, you make it so that he doesn't have enough of time to throw out his skill rotation back into you. The same applies to Ambessa into Gwen, I believe, where you will throw your EQ with hopes of dodging Gwen's Q by just dashing away from it. With Sion, it doesn't work like that. What Sion wants to do is he wants to trade with you on your CDs. You throw your E, your Q is on cooldown, your E is on cooldown. That's where he's turning around with his E and Q and trading back onto you. So for that reason, when he goes for E here, I don't hate it so much. But then, here, I would want him to auto-attack first and then Q. And the Q should be used sideways, not backwards. So here, instead of dashing back, dash sideways. This auto-attack exchange is gonna be good for you. He doesn't even have grasp on Sion. So Doran is just playing Kakari. That's what he's doing so far. Looking very European in the past couple of minutes. The Q2 backwards is fine. What's not fine though is that what Kiin should do is turn. Kiin should E and then chase him down with W. And either Doran is Wing backwards and disengaging, in which case you can even chase him down and maybe recast your W, maybe Q him, or he's turning around, in which case he's dying, or like he's losing an exchange hard. But for God knows what reason, Kiin didn't trade on this. I'm not sure why. I have no idea. He goes for an attack exchange, but that's it. This is both a mistake from Doran, from not respecting his cooldowns, and then also from Kiin, to not punish this. This time is a very good exchange from Doran until the Q1 dash. Once again, very passive on the dashes. The first dash is good, the W is good. The auto attack is good. The readjustment positioning, you could see it, to land your outer Q damage. This is all really good. But then you should dash forward on this Q1, or sideways. But because he doesn't dash at all, he cannot play for another passive proc. Q2 is fine. Now all of his abilities are on cooldown. Kiin made a mistake of holding the wave, similar to the one Doran made, where I believe the turret aggro is more like this, which should mean for Kiin that he should pull the wave all the way here, because he wants the wave to be as close to the turret as possible, so that Doran is not able to just hard push this wave and crash it. And on top of that, another advantage that you get from pulling the wave closer to this wall is that your Q will have a little bit of a higher value, because there is a tighter area throughout which Ambessa is allowed to play. He doesn't pull it properly. Instead, he allows the wave to be quite far away from the turret, which I dislike. I think this is just like I don't want to say a massive mistake, but not a mistake that Kiin should be making. He should understand a little bit better wave positioning. He goes for EQ exchange on Doran's cooldowns. You need to remember, here, Doran throughout his entire skill rotation. So, here, he throws his W, E, Q, and then 10 seconds later, Kiin times it and goes for EQ himself. Really good. The problem now, though, is that this wave on Doran's side is quite big. Zen is walking topside. What Doran needs to do is clear this entire wave and disengage as fast as he can. He's playing on a timer right now. So he goes in, W's, E's, all inside of the wave. It might seem like he's looking to trade, but he isn't. He is looking to crash the wave. And he should have died. But Canyon is a greedy little jungler, okay? He's going for a crab instead of skipping camps and ganking top. This is not only him running it down, but it's also him just being blind and them not communicating. That's the only way I can explain it. Like, this is beyond crazy that you go for a crab when this guy is this much overextended with this much HP left. It's wild. I don't know what the fuck I'm watching. So now Doran is gonna disengage with his flash, Q away, and he's out. Even though he should have never been out. And he wouldn't be out if Canyon was not brain damaged. Now the wave is in this position. What Kiin should do is just allow this wave to kill your wave. At the same time, you want to reduce it to some extent. You don't want the wave to be too big because you want the next wave to be held outside of your turret range as well. You want all of the waves to meet as close to your turret as possible. And so if you, let's say, were to not kill any of these minions at all, then you would have to tank 7, let's say, range minions instead of tanking only like 4 or 3, which is a massive difference, of course. So this is very good by Kiin that he's reducing the wave and recognizing this. Then he goes back. He clicks B, but he isn't actually going to reset. Instead, he will hold the wave just outside of his turret range, hold the range minions just outside of the turret range, and now he's gonna reset. One of the minions decided to suicide, doesn't really matter. What matters though is that now the wave will continue to push into Sion because these ranges are alive, so they're hitting this cannon wave. So they're hitting this cannon wave. So in turn, Ambessa has to hard push this wave, because if she were to be slow pushing it, then she wouldn't deny anything from Sion, so Sion might not even be forced into TPing back to lane, although he probably still would have. And then on top of that, he gets the experience out of these minions that are dying here. So this is like a full value that he squeezes out of his wave management. After he sees this W and E from Ambessa, he probably should have stopped his reset, because he has sufficient vision to know that he's probably not getting dove, unless he's thinking that Wukong is gonna come through topside, and this dive is actually gonna work. I don't even think that if Wukong were to be here, I don't think this dive would have worked, from my understanding of limits of both of these champions, but either way, this is good enough. I don't hate it. He goes for a reset, and then gets back to lane. Doran gets chunked a little, but he is out as well. As you can see, he continues to slow push the wave, because once again, he wants the wave to be closer to his side of the lane. So he's not going to just randomly queue through the entirety of this wave, so that the wave is closer to the middle of the lane. That would benefit Ambessa. And this is good. And this is also where I will end this review. As you could see, this game was an insanely high quality game when it comes to both positioning, trade patterns that both players are going for. Wave management was good. It wasn't terrible by any of them. And that's how best players in the world lane. They still make mistakes, as you could see. They're not perfect by any means, not even close to being perfect, which is why I enjoy reviewing this game. And yeah, bye-bye.